Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today at your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. I'm sitting here with rather a good cup of coffee, I must say. But, in this essay, I'd like to talk about infantilization of the West. And I'm talking society in general, but probably more of an emphasis, if you like, on the business sector. And I've been to a few meetings where either I've been the only man at the meeting, the only guy at the meeting, often the only white person or Anglo at the meeting. This is in Australia, by the way, and a lot of the meetings in the areas where there's probably the most active areas in the economy, and where there's a lot of government involvement and government protection and cartels, that sort of thing. The majority of people working in there, certainly at the below senior executive level, are women. Now we're talking sort of age range, 25 to early 40s, I suppose, somewhere around there. And one thing sort of intrigues me is how infantile the meetings are, and the behaviour and the sort of things discussed, the attitudes, how people express themselves, how decisions are made, or more to the point, avoided, and how responsibility is avoided, and how sort of a strict committee system where no one makes a decision and no one's responsible for anything that goes wrong, and it's all very, it's all very socialist, really, and this sort of suggests to me, and I think it's getting worse, about people unable to even conceive of a personal responsibility. Why should they be personally responsible for anything? Now, the personal responsibility may be for misgendering somebody. But that's even, two rules. The enforcers of the rules don't have to live by those rules themselves. They can impose that sort of reign of terror on others. And it's typically, ideologically at least, straight white males are automatically guilty by their mere existence. Then men after that, and so on it goes. But again, the infantilization is the issue. So I remember when I was at one meeting, I sort of was sitting there just listening, and they carried on as if I wasn't there, really. So the girls were all talking, and again, the youngest one in the room would have been maybe 30, but so they carried on, and it just reminded me of, and seemed like it was just young schoolgirls playing house. Everything was in somehow a fantasy, sort of framed in a fantasy reference, and there was no reality, no responsibility, no culpability, and so on. So, and I think any society that doesn't encourage personal responsibility automatically heads down a path of infantilization, and that I believe is where we are now. In fact, well down that path, as far as I can tell. So I remember at primary school there was for some reason this sticks in my head, and I was probably 9 years old. I was at this particular school not for very long, something to do with the folks being in that area, for something to do with work. But I wasn't there very long, but anyway, this girl came from some other country. I don't remember which one. She's white and quite fair, so European, you'd guess, but she didn't speak much English. So the teacher, who was, I think back, was a radical activist lesbian, but not that I thought about it at the time, decided that a committee had to look after this new girl in the school, and so they assigned, I think it was 4 or 5 girls, and then I must have walked past at just the right moment, because he decided one boy had to be on the committee. So, hey, Billy Bob, you over there. So I got stuck in the committee, not really aware of what was meant to happen, if anything. So I kind of went along. The girls were very much in charge of this, so I was like a passenger. But they just said, well, what are we going to do to help this girl sort of get going, get started? She really doesn't speak much English, and has never been out of the town that she's lived in up until then, so hardly has a wide world view of anything. So I made some suggestions like, well, why don't we get an English to whatever her language was dictionary, and why don't we get a local map and point out areas of interest that she may want to visit, and get books maybe on the history of those places. And this was loudly shouted down as what nonsense. So the girls quickly formed a committee that only girls can in this way. I don't think boys could actually do it, or certainly not at that age. Formed a very socialist type committee, and decided that what they would do would be they would act out the latest play that they had done in drama lessons, and that's what they would do. So and there was a number. It was sort of like a kind of a musical type thing. So there were songs there. So they got up and decided in it was like they were all instant agreement that they would act out this play, and that they would sing the songs from the play. And I remember this. I can picture almost her face now. This girl. One of the lines in the song was, "and feathers in their hair," and she touched her hair, and they were all very, very sort of, I don't know, what would you call it? Academy Award winning. They obviously loved the singing, loved the acting. It was their little shtick, and they seemed to. So they did this and did their dancing and prancing around, with great dramatic sort of flair, and that was their way of introducing this this girl to the school in the area in English. And I remember, for some reason, the look on the girl's face, the look of, holy fuck, what's happening here? And so even at 9 years old, I sort of kind of half got the humour of this girl's surprise at what she was seeing unfold before. But the girls in the group, though, were very much like, this is, hey, we're doing a good thing, great thing. But they never got away from this playing house concept of how things would be done. Socialist committee will play house, very self-indulgent, and if, again, sort of no one took responsibility for anything. Now, when I'm sitting in this meeting with all these women, again, the youngest being 30, the way they behaved and the structure and the dramatic sort of juvenile posturing and all that sort of thing. It reminded, it took me back almost straight away to that time in primary school. It transported me there through the years, and this is like 50 years ago. So it was. I didn't say anything, but now pretty much every meeting that I go to that has majority girls, and particularly if it's Quango, a public service, big multinational, you can get almost exactly the same thing each time, that nobody taking responsibility. Even if there is someone there who sort of does see that a decision has to be made and responsibility must be taken, they seem to display almost infinite patience with all this playing house schoolgirly type stuff. And I sort of wonder, why is it? Why indulge them? Why not say, hey, act responsibly, act like an adult, don't act like a child? But maybe they want the childish thing. Now, the other thing, just to sort of as part of that, something else that I've noticed when I see managers, supervisors talking to staff, and even peers talking amongst themselves. It's not as if there are two responsible people talking about real issues or having to solve real problems or that sort of thing. It's all, again, it's done in this strange sort of childlike committee thing. So this is a simple example. Here's a supervisor telling somebody, or can you go and move? I'll simplify it here just for the benefit of the video. But can you move those pile of widgets from there to there? So it's reasonably direct. So the response comes back. So basically, what you're saying is, in this sort of Valley Girl, sort of California Valley Girl speak. So basically, what you're saying is, you want this to go there, and you want me to do Yeah, that's right. So the supervisor then repeats the original instruction, but in a different way. Okay, so what you're saying is, and this goes back and forth, and move the widgets from there to there has now taken quite a while, but it gets more infantile as it goes along. But each person seems to enjoy the infantile nature of it. Nobody wants, hey, can you just, without being gruff or vulgar or rude or anything like that, there's a straightforward way of saying this. And maybe if it's a complex instruction, people will ask, well, what do you mean to do here? When you say, do such and such, do you mean, so clarification's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But this pretense of I've no idea what you're talking about, I have to ask again, and then I've got to go one more time, and then one more after that. Can you repeat that, and so on? But it's done in an infantile way. It's not done amongst people who are serious about doing their job, or who are accepting responsibility and assuming that others around them are accepting responsibility. So I think the infantilization of the workforce and society is going apace. And the only responsible people who are allowed to be responsible now are straight white males, and then maybe white people sort of after that. But no one else is really required to be, whether you've got mobs looting shops and things like that, and the police stand around and do nothing, or say, look, it's much easier if we just don't do anything. Those people in the shops, they've got insurance, who cares? That sort of stuff. Standards of behavior and accountability, responsibility, just being sensible and reasonable. These things are all being happily passed up in favor of some very obscure ideology. So if you misgender somebody, you can have the police at your door. You can even get arrested for something like that, which would have been viewed as utter insanity even 10 years ago. But if you refuse to accept responsibility for something in your work, a decision you've made that didn't work out, or the avoiding responsibility at all costs, these sort of things, then there's really no penalty for that now. And the more infantile you're prepared to be, the more secure it appears that people's jobs are. If someone actually does get up and say, well, look, I'll take responsibility, I'll do it, or I'll do this or that or the next thing, then holy shit, we've got to get rid of them. And I just, maybe I'm imagining it, and I'd be interested to see your comments below, but it appears to be that's how it's gone, and responsibility is something that is now almost outlawed, whereas infantilization is encouraged, subsidized, and supported from all sides. You've been a Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.